The human gave up everything for love, but she had already chosen another. Captain Daniel Cross stood at the observation deck of the starship Mercury, watching the blue planet below shrink into the distance, and he knew he could never return because Earth had declared him a traitor and stripped him of his citizenship and confiscated everything he owned. And all of this happened because he fell in love with someone his species was forbidden to touch. 3 years ago, Daniel was the youngest fleet, captain in human history, and commanded respect across 12 star systems. And his missions were legendary, and his crew loyal, and his future seemed unlimited. But everything changed when the Mercury was assigned to diplomatic duty at the Calarian homeworld. The Calarians were an advanced species who had mastered technology that humans could only dream about, and their society was elegant, and their cities floated among the clouds, and their people were known for their beauty and grace, and among them was Commander Lena, who served as the liaison between her people and the human delegation. Daniel first saw Lena during the welcome ceremony, and she stood on a platform of crystalline light, and her skin shimmered with a faint silver glow, and her eyes were large and deep violet, and her movements were fluid like water. And when she spoke, her voice carried a musical quality that made his heart race in a way he had never experienced. The diplomatic mission was supposed to last 3 months, and during that time Daniel and Lena worked closely together, and they discussed trade agreements and cultural exchanges and military cooperation. And with each meeting, Daniel found himself more captivated, and Lena seemed equally drawn to him, and they began meeting privately to share stories of their worlds. Lena told him about Calarian philosophy and their belief that love transcends physical form, and Daniel shared human poetry and music with her, and they discovered that despite their different origins, their souls seemed to recognize each other. And one night under 3 moons, Lena took his hand and told him that she felt something she had never felt before. The relationship violated every protocol, and Earth Command had strict rules against romantic involvement with alien species, especially with strategic partners like the Calarians, and the Calarian Council also frowned upon such unions because they believed their people should maintain genetic purity. But Daniel and Lena could not resist what had grown between them. When Daniel's superior officer, Admiral Grant, discovered the relationship, he was furious, and he ordered Daniel to end it immediately and threatened court-martial and removal from command. But Daniel refused, and he told the admiral that he had found something more valuable than rank or career. And the admiral warned him that choosing this path would destroy everything he had built. Daniel did not care, and he made his choice, and he resigned his commission and requested asylum on the Calarian homeworld, and Earth Command responded with rage, and they accused him of treason, and claimed he had compromised military secrets, and they issued a warrant for his arrest, and declared him an enemy of humanity. The Calarian Council was initially sympathetic, and they granted Daniel temporary residency, but they made it clear that his relationship with Lena was controversial, and many Calarians protested his presence and called him an outsider who did not belong. Despite the challenges, Daniel was happy because he had Lena, and they moved into a small dwelling on the edge of one of the floating cities, and Daniel learned the Calarian language and customs, and Lena taught him their ways, and they spent their days exploring the beauty of her world and their nights dreaming of a future together. But then something changed, and Lena became distant, and she spent more time at the council chambers and less time with Daniel. And when he asked her what was wrong, she told him she needed space to think. And Daniel felt fear creeping into his heart, but he trusted her, and he gave her the time she needed. 2 months after Daniel gave up everything, Lena came to him with tears in her violet eyes, and she sat down across from him and took a deep breath and told him that she was promised to someone else, and the arrangement had been made long before she met Daniel, and her family expected her to honor it. Daniel felt his world collapse, and he asked her if she loved this other person. And Lena looked away and said it did not matter because duty came before personal desire, and the Calarian way required her to fulfill her obligations to her family and her people. The other person was Commander Terran, who was a high-ranking military officer and a childhood friend of Lena, and he came from one of the most powerful families on the Calarian homeworld, and the union would strengthen political alliances and bring honor to both families, and Lena had known about this arrangement all along. Daniel felt betrayed, and he asked Lena why she let him sacrifice everything if she knew she could never truly be with him. And Lena cried and said she thought she could change things, and she believed love would be enough to break the old traditions. But the pressure from her family and the council was too great, and she could not fight against centuries of custom. Daniel wanted to be angry, but when he looked at Lena, he saw only pain, and he realized she was trapped just as he was, and he asked her if there was any chance they could still find a way. And Lena shook her head and told him she had already accepted Taryn's proposal, and the bonding ceremony would take place. In 1 month, in that moment, Daniel understood the terrible price of his choice, and he had given up his home, his career, his species, and his future, and all for a love that could never be. And he was alone on an alien world with no way back and no purpose left. The days that followed were the darkest of Daniel's life, and he watched from a distance as Lena prepared for her bonding, and he saw her standing beside Taryn at public events. And she looked beautiful, but her eyes no longer held the light he remembered. And Daniel wondered if she was as miserable as he was. 1 week before the ceremony, Lena came to see Daniel one last time, and she told him she would always love him, and that he had shown her what it meant to feel truly alive. And she said she was sorry for the pain she caused, and Daniel held her one final time and told her he understood, and that he would carry her memory forever, after Lena left. Daniel sat alone in his dwelling and looked out at the floating cities and the alien sky, and he realized he had made the ultimate human sacrifice, and he had chosen love over everything else, and he had lost. And yet, despite the pain and the emptiness, he did not regret his choice, because he had experienced something pure and beautiful, even if it could not last. The bonding ceremony happened without Daniel present, and he heard the celebrations echoing across the city, and he knew Lena was now bound to another, and Daniel remained on the Calarian homeworld as an exile and a reminder of what happens when love crosses boundaries that should not be crossed. Months passed, and Daniel found work as a translator, and he lived quietly and avoided contact with other humans who occasionally visited the planet, and he never saw Lena again, though he heard she had left the capital city to live in the northern territories with Taryn Onday. A young Calarian approached Daniel and told him that Lena had sent a message, and the message was simple, and it said that she thought of him every day, and that her heart would always belong to him, even though her life belonged to another. Daniel realized then that some loves are not meant to be fulfilled, and some sacrifices lead only to loss. And yet the human capacity to give up everything for love, even foolish love, even impossible love, was perhaps the greatest and most tragic quality of his species. And so Daniel Cross, the man who gave up everything, remained on an alien world far from home forever, marked by a choice he could not undo and a love he could not forget.